All right, so if you're going to buy an existing self-storage facility, what are some of the things you want to look for? What do you want to look at? In the last video, we talked about developing ground up. And so you want to research your market. You want to find out what your competition is, what the demand in the market looks like. The average right now nationally is about, they say, 8 square foot of storage per person. So if you run the demographics in your area, and divide that by 8, that tells you how many square foot of storage is required in your market on average. That's a national average. Every market's different, every location's different. Remember, storage is a retail business now, so location is huge. Proximity to the users is key. Safety, security, and all that, and convenience. That's what people are looking for. So in terms of buying an existing facility, it's like anything else. It's a retail business, so it's all about the numbers. You want to get all the financials, the T12, T6, T3, and right now, during this coronavirus situation, we're July 1 of 2020. You want to look weekly up to date what the collections look like, what the vacancies look like, and what the delinquencies look like if there's anybody not paying their rent for the facilities. So you want to take a look at all those things and just make sure you understand how that facility is operating right now during this time. Self-storage is done well in most economic climates, but there are a lot of people under pressure right now, and as we get deeper into this thing going into the fall, if the unemployment benefits run out, people could be struggling and start selling items and moving out of the storage and or not paying their rent. So you got to keep an eye on that. You got to understand what the collections look like, how many people are behind, how many are not paying at all, and what all that looks like. So you want to dig into the financials, get as much history as you can, but especially the last 12, 6, 3 months, and then you want to do week to date as you're getting closer to closing on that facility. You want to understand the conditions of the property, take a good hard look at it. You want to get all the environmental studies that they have, if any, surveys, all those types of things when you're doing your due diligence process. And then take into account the area that the facility is in and what surrounds it. What's the proximity. When it comes to value add, there's a number of things you can do, whether you want to have on-site management or not, whether you want to install a kiosk or not. There's positives and negatives to that. Some people like them, some people don't. But the big thing is you want to make sure you understand it's a retail business. So you need to understand all of the metrics around it, what your competition looks like, what the average rates in the market are, what the vacancies are. You can do a lot of that through Google and through calling up existing facilities and finding out what they have available for rent, and go and tour their properties and look at their properties versus yours. If you have a big facility, you can do some value add stuff with vending machines and other types of moving and packing materials and some other things like that, in terms of adding value and generating revenue centers for the property. You can add a car wash bay. I mean, there's a number of things you can do to add additional revenue centers to the property. So you can find lists of things like that on Google, how to add value to a self-storage building and how to automate it, things like that. So some of the more rural properties, you can automate. The ones in the cities that are more retail oriented, they're expecting somebody to be on site that they can talk to and show the facility to them. So just understand what your market demand is, what the needs are. When you do your due diligence, get all of the paperwork, all the history, all the financials that you can, especially if you're buying a mom and pop facility. A lot of times they will not have their financials in order and they won't have tax returns, and they're reluctant to give those things over. So you're just going to have to do your own homework, estimate what the income is, what the operating expenses are, what's standard for the industry for that type of facility. 30, 40%, 50%, depending on where it's at, what it is, and how much landscaping and lighting and utilities are involved with the property. Whether or not it's climate controlled, that drives up the operating expense versus non-climate controlled. So you want to understand all the different metrics around the facilities and how the numbers are derived and what the operational expenses and income potential is. So those are some of the things to look for when you are buying a self-storage facility, an existing facility.